My parents gave me a trip for my 18th birthday. But when I came back, the house was empty. When I turned 18, my parents gave me what seemed like an amazing birthday gift, a weekend getaway with all expenses paid. It wasn't anything luxurious, just a trip to a nearby city with a hotel stay. But at the time, I felt very grateful. It felt like a final celebration of my childhood before stepping into adulthood. I had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. But when I got home, everything was gone, the furniture, the clothes, everything. My belongings had vanished. My key didn't work. There was a "for sale" sign out front, and I just stood there wondering what had happened because I had only been gone a few days. My first thought was that maybe I had the wrong address, but no, the address was right, and I was standing in front of the house I had been living in. I tried calling my parents, but their numbers were disconnected. I had nothing but a backpack of weekend clothes and a phone that was running out of battery. I finally got in touch with an aunt who explained what had happened. My parents had planned it for months. They put the house up for sale, took everything they wanted, and left me behind. They moved to another state without leaving an address. And when I eventually found them through distant relatives, do you know what they told me? That they had fulfilled their duty by raising me for 18 years and now it was my turn to be an adult. They acted like it was perfectly normal to leave without telling me anything. To them, since I was legally an adult, I should just figure things out on my own. I was homeless, alone, with no savings, no support system, nothing. Abandoned overnight. The least they could have done was give me a heads up. And it's not like I was ungrateful or lazy. I had part-time jobs and helped out around the house. I was a good student, did my chores, always tried to be a good daughter. I never took anything for granted and was always thankful. I wasn't spoiled. I didn't expect them to support me forever. I was willing to work and move out when I turned 18. How hard would it have been to just tell me? What disturbed me the most was how they genuinely believed they were doing the right thing, and that I was the ungrateful one for even questioning their choices. They were so cruel, but they didn't care, because they were gone. It took me years to crawl out of the hole they threw me into. I worked multiple jobs, slept on friends' couches, and often in my car when I had nowhere else to go. Despite everything, I managed to go to college. It took me longer than others, but I did the best I could with the hand I was dealt. A life they never thought I'd be able to build. Now I'm 36, happily married to my wonderful husband Samuel. We have a beautiful 1-year-old son named Oliver, and I have a career that allows me to have a roof over my head. I got here without any help from my parents, or rather, I got here in spite of my parents. And suddenly, after 18 years of silence, my mother shows up. No apology. She acted like nothing ever happened. Just a casual message asking how I'd been all this time, followed by another one saying she and my dad would love to meet their grandson. As if they were reconnecting with an old friend. These are the same people who abandoned me exactly 18 years ago. I didn't reply, because, well, I don't think they deserve a reply. I have nothing to say to them. They want to meet my son, the one they're calling their grandson. But I don't think they have the right to call themselves his grandparents. They're simply the people who lived with me until I turned 18 because the law required it, but that's all. I told Samuel about the message, and he was furious on my behalf. He said I don't owe them anything. As far as Samuel is concerned, they don't deserve to see our son, and nothing good could come from them being in his life. If you're a parent, you'll understand, something mine never were to me. You don't want your children around people who are toxic or could harm them. So this is my story, of some truly awful parents and their attempt to come back into my life. Update 1. I thought that was the end of it. A normal person would understand the hint when you don't reply to a message, it means I don't care. But narcissists with entitlement issues like my parents are anything but normal. They think it's perfectly fine to stay silent for years and just come back whenever they feel like it. That's not how it works, unless your brain functions like a Karen or a Kevin. My husband and I had made the decision not to reply, not even to say no, because they didn't deserve that. And not replying should have been enough of a response. But for people like them, silence is apparently an invitation to barge back into my life uninvited. They kept sending messages. At first, it was just my mom. They were casual and suspiciously sweet, as if she'd just lost touch for a while, not like she and my dad had abandoned me at 18 with nothing. She asked how I was, how my husband was, and gushed about how excited she was to be a grandmother. She sent me old baby pictures of me, probably trying to appeal to my emotions. I left them unread. Then the messages started coming more frequently, and the tone shifted from casual to confused. She wanted to know why I wasn't responding and kept saying things like, "We just want to see our grandson. You can't ignore your own family forever." After a few days, she stopped messaging, and we thought it was over. But then my dad joined in. He didn't bother pretending to be sweet, he was angry from the very first message. He said I was being immature and that whatever I was upset about had happened a long time ago, and it was time to get over it. The texts and calls became constant. Every time I ignored one, another came in. If I blocked a number, they used a new one. Then one day, they escalated things into a direct threat. The last message from my mom said that if I didn't let them see their grandson, they would be forced to take action. According to them, they had grandparents' rights and would pursue every legal option to enforce them, whether I liked it or not. I could make it easy by letting them see my son, or they'd take the hard route. All supposedly to teach me some manners. I didn't respond to that either because it was ridiculous. So they came back with something worse. They messaged me from a new number saying they were going to call Child Protective Services. They claimed that not letting their grandson see his grandparents was some form of abuse. I nearly laughed out loud. Them talking about abuse, after everything they did to me. Maybe it wasn't child abuse legally, since I was 18 at the time, but it's not like they know what being a decent parent even looks like. Samuel lost it when I showed him the message. He said if they ever dared to file a false report or even tried to sue us, it wouldn't end well for them, at all. And I don't think it's wrong to treat parents like that when they've done what they did. They have no rights, especially not the right to be sending me this kind of nonsense. I know they don't have any real case with CPS. I mean, we're good parents. Oliver is safe, loved, and well taken care of. But the fact that they would even threaten something like that tells me everything I need to know. I don't even understand what their goal is. Maybe they think they can intimidate me into giving in. Maybe they hope I'll panic and let them in just to avoid trouble. Maybe they're just angry that I refuse to pretend the past never happened. But here's the thing, I'm not 18 anymore, and I don't need them in my life. They made sure to teach me a lesson when they left me out on the street, and now they're about to see the consequences. I survived without them. I built a life without them. Now, they're not needed for anything. Maybe they're realizing that abandoning me to go live their lives came with consequences, and now they want me back in theirs because their lives feel empty. Well, it can always feel even emptier if they keep poking the hornet's nest. We're documenting everything, every message, every voicemail. If they want to play dirty, fine. But they have no idea who they're messing with. Update 2. A few weeks ago, all they were doing was bombarding us with messages and threats, trying to guilt-trip me into letting them see Oliver. And now, they've found out where we live. After they threatened to call Child Services, Samuel and I decided to consult with a lawyer. We needed to know our rights and make sure we were protected in case they actually tried anything. We even stopped answering unknown numbers in case they were trying to reach us by other means. The lawyer reassured us, they have no legal standing. Grandparents' rights only apply in extreme situations, usually when there's already an established relationship with the child. My parents haven't been in my life since I was a teenager, and obviously not in Oliver's either. Still, the lawyer advised us to stay vigilant. Some people, once they realize they can't win legally, try to intimidate their way in. And that's exactly what happened. Just a few days ago, they showed up at our house. I was home alone with Oliver at the time. Samuel was at work. Since I work remotely, it was just the two of us. I had just put Oliver down for a nap when I heard knocking at the door. At first, I thought it was a delivery, but then the knocking got louder and more persistent. I looked through the peephole, and there they were. The worst parents in the world. We never gave them our address. How did they find us? Did they hire someone? Track us through old records? I don't know, and honestly, in that moment, I didn't care. The only thing that mattered was that they were standing at my door. And they didn't come empty-handed. My mother was holding a gift bag, probably meant for Oliver. Another manipulation attempt to appear like loving grandparents. My dad stood behind her with his arms crossed, already looking annoyed because I hadn't opened the door. I didn't open it. I didn't say a word. But it wasn't exactly hard to tell someone was home with a car in the driveway. I heard my mother's voice through the door, syrupy sweet to the point of being nauseating. She said they just wanted to talk, that they had come from far away to see their grandson, and that I needed to be reasonable. I didn't respond. I stood there with my phone in hand, trying to decide what to do. And that's when their tone changed. The sweetness ended, and my mom started yelling, demanding I let her in. She was shouting that they hadn't driven all that way just to waste their time, and they weren't leaving without seeing me. My dad joined in, yelling that gas prices weren't cheap and they didn't like having their time wasted. Then they started pounding on the door. If it hadn't been a sturdy one, they might have broken it down. I grabbed Oliver from his crib, scared the noise would wake him up and make him cry, which would only encourage them more. Besides, if they somehow got in, I wanted to be ready to run and lock myself in a room while waiting for the police, which I called once I had my son in my arms. Then I called Samuel. The moment he answered, I whispered what was happening. He was furious. He told me to lock everything, stay away from the windows, and call the police if they didn't leave. But I told him I already had. My mom's voice suddenly changed again. She went from screaming to sounding calm, like she hadn't just been yelling a few seconds before. She said they were giving me one last chance to do the right thing and let them in, and that if I didn't, I'd regret it. I yelled through the door that the police were on their way, and if they didn't leave right now, I wasn't going to drop the report. They hesitated for a moment, and then they left. But not without leaving their mark. My dad kicked one of the flower pots on the porch, smashing it on the ground. Samuel got home shortly after and wanted to go chasing after them, but I begged him not to. We had to be smart. That same night, we made a decision. We packed up the essentials and went straight to his parents' house. We don't feel safe in our own home anymore. If they found us once, they can do it again. And now that they've crossed the line into full-on harassment, we have no idea what they'll try next. Our next step was to file a police report and talk to our lawyer about a restraining order. Samuel's even thinking about getting a gun, but I'm not comfortable with having one in the house. Hopefully, the legal route will be enough, and we won't have to take it that far. Update 3. It's been a week since we left our house and came to stay with my in-laws. And here, I feel safe, or at least as safe as I can feel, given the situation. There are more people around, and I'm never alone. Samuel's family has been incredibly supportive, and honestly, having my brother-in-law around adds another layer of protection that my father won't want to test. This guy doesn't just look tall, he looks like he belongs on a celebrity security team. If my parents try showing up here, they're going to get their asses handed to them. But of course, my parents haven't stopped trying. They're still harassing us, which is good for our legal case. They've tried everything, calling from different numbers, sending emails, even getting random people I don't know, or who have no business being involved, to call me. At least now I understand why they were so desperate to meet my son. At first, I thought it was just their typical sense of entitlement, thinking they could waltz back into my life and get whatever they wanted. But it turns out it's something even more disgusting. I found out through a cousin that around the same time they discovered I had a baby, one of my aunts had a newborn granddaughter. And then everything clicked. I had forgotten just how obsessed my family was with being first child, first grandchild, first male grandchild. Everything was a competition. And now, they saw an opportunity to beat my aunt. They didn't want to meet Oliver because they missed me. They didn't want to meet Oliver because they suddenly cared about family, they wanted to show him off like a trophy. They wanted to make sure the whole extended family knew that they had the first male grandchild. Not just a grandchild, but a boy. I can picture it perfectly, the twisted sense of pride they were chasing. My mom, smugly smiling at family gatherings, rubbing it in my aunt's face that she had a grandson first. My dad puffing out his chest like having a grandson made him superior. That's why they were so desperate to do what they did. Narcissistic people do things like this when they think they're right. I was furious. And the more I thought about it, the more old memories started flooding back. Things I never shared because I thought them abandoning me was enough to paint a clear picture of who they were. I remembered being a little girl growing up in a house where I always felt like I was born the wrong gender. For my parents, I was the third granddaughter, but more importantly, I was a girl. And even back then, I could feel the disappointment. They were never openly cruel about it, but they never made me feel especially wanted either. I was always compared to my older cousin, the firstborn of the family. He was treated like royalty. Not just by my parents, but by the entire family. Every little thing he did was a big deal. His first steps. Family gathering. Started school. They called everyone to brag about how well he was doing. I was just another girl, like my cousin. I remember once overhearing my mom talking to one of her sisters, saying she'd hoped for a boy when she was pregnant with me, and suddenly, a lot of things made sense. When they abandoned me at 18, when they sold the house and left me with nothing, I spent years trying to understand why. Yes, they're selfish and awful, but I still wanted to get to the root of it. But maybe there's not much more to say, they left me when it was legal to do so. That's it. Just because I was a girl. And now, almost 2 decades later, this disgusting tradition is still haunting me. Worse, now it's aimed at my son. But my son will not be part of that tradition. We're making sure of it. Update 4. It's been months since this nightmare started. It's not just about the harassment charges anymore, which alone would have been stressful enough, but now my parents are going even further. They're trying to fight for grandparents' rights over my son. I shouldn't have been surprised. With how arrogant they are, it was probably inevitable. But knowing it doesn't make it any less exhausting. My husband and I are mentally and emotionally drained. These past few months have been a constant cycle of meeting with lawyers, filing paperwork, and doing everything we can to keep my parents from getting anywhere near us. If you're thinking, well, surely now they'll give up and you can go back to living your life, no. Every time we think it's over, they come up with something new. At this point, we don't even live in our own house anymore. We're still staying with my in-laws for safety. And while I'm incredibly grateful to them, I miss having my own space. I miss the life Samuel and I had before my parents crashed into it. But we're doing what we have to do. We weren't granted a restraining order against them, because the legal system claims things are too complicated, now that they're trying to claim grandparents' rights. And I hate that the early years of Oliver's life are being overshadowed by this disaster. I want to enjoy watching my son grow up without constantly worrying about whether my toxic parents are going to do something crazy. I don't want to live in a constant state of paranoia, afraid they'll find another way to invade our lives. We're also suing them for harassment at the same time, but it's all just a big steaming mess of legal action that never seems to end. The idea behind filing was to show them we weren't going to be intimidated, but instead of physical or digital harassment, now they're trying to make it legal. My parents are trying to argue that I never let them be a part of my life, and now I'm doing the same with my son. That they were loving parents for 18 years and now can't believe I'm treating them this way. It's absolutely insane, but that's what they're using as arguments, to wear me down. I don't think they actually expect to win. Their goal is just to exhaust me until I give up and say, fine, you can meet him. And honestly, it almost seems like it's working, except it's not. Because even though we're tired, we're still fighting. My fuel is how much I hate them, for abandoning me, and for everything they're doing now. That hatred keeps me in the fight. Two can play the game of wearing the other down. And when I wear them down, I'll go even harder. Update 5. It's been nearly 2 years since this nightmare began, and I can finally say, we're free. We won. Every case. After all the stress, threats, and total emotional exhaustion of fighting for our peace, we finally put an end to my parents' relentless attempts to force their way into our lives. The grandparents' rights lawsuit was dismissed and closed. The harassment case went in our favor, and they were ordered to pay nearly $1,000. A steep price for a broken flower pot. But even though we won, my husband and I decided we couldn't take any more chances. A month ago, we packed up and left the country. We now live abroad, and honestly, it still feels surreal. We relocated to my mother-in-law's home country, and thankfully, the transition has been relatively smooth. Samuel was lucky enough to get reassigned within the same company, and they even subsidized part of our move, which helped a lot. My in-laws decided to come with us too. They were already planning to retire here, so it worked out perfectly. And while it's a big change, we're adjusting well so far. As for my parents, last I heard, they're still complaining. Their direct attacks have quieted down a bit, probably because they know they can't afford any more legal trouble. But that doesn't mean they've stopped trying to play the victims. They'll never find us again. Update 6. Things have been really quiet with my parents. They haven't been able to find us, no matter what they try, and I have to admit, I like this country more than I expected. We live in a much safer neighborhood than we used to, not just in terms of my parents, but overall. This change has been overwhelmingly positive. I'm sorry to start with the good news and then shift into the negative. It can hit harder that way than if I'd started with the bad. But honestly, this part is only negative if you're my parents. For everyone else, including Samuel and me, it actually feels like a win. Remember how I told you my parents were obsessed with being first in everything in the family? Well, they lost the first grandson race. My aunt, who's just as bad as them, if not worse, didn't miss the chance to rub it in their faces. During a family gathering, she kept parading her grandson around, showing him off non-stop and repeatedly asking about their grandchild. That went on for a couple of hours, until my mom, out of nowhere, slapped my aunt across the face. And she did it while my aunt was holding the baby. My cousin and her husband had to step in and break it up because my mom kept trying to attack her even while she held the baby. Then my dad jumped in, and he ended up fighting with my cousin's husband. The gathering ended real fast when the police showed up and took both my dad and the cousin's husband into custody. Charges were filed against my mom too. Since then, my parents haven't been invited to a single family event. And they had to pay $800 to my aunt for the slap and $24,400 to the baby's parents. My cousin told me all of this a long time after it happened because she wasn't sure I'd want to hear anything about my parents, given everything that's happened. But I told her she was crazy if she thought I wouldn't want to know about something like that. I mean, this country is super safe, but it's also incredibly boring. You don't get gossip like this over here. So now, my parents don't have to worry about competing in the family anymore. And I don't have to worry about them using my son to do it, because as far as we're concerned, they don't have a family anymore.